Good morning. Your Soul's Compass by Joan Borsenko and Gordon DeViren. In the realm of spiritual development and learning, almost everyone goes through the phase of thinking that they have a direct line to God. When we first touch the excitement of being able to connect with a deep place, the ego is thrilled. There are lots of goodies there, and it's much more fun than some of daily life is. It is the direct line to God problem that threatens to make spiritual guidance suspect and potentially dangerous. Politicians and religious figures frequently pass along what they believe to be spiritual guidance to others, even when it turns out to be wrong or profoundly damaging. Other believers often continue to support these self-styled prophets. When people are in positions of power, practicing due diligence about the veracity of their claims in relationship to your own life is a personal responsibility. Secondhand messages from God don't relieve you of accountability for the choices that you make. Regardless of the source of so-called spiritual guidance, there are 6 distinct types of wisdom that can help you practice discernment: common sense, head wisdom, heart wisdom, body wisdom, reflective wisdom, and the wisdom of transcending opposites. This morning we'll consider how these ways of knowing can aid us in evaluating guidance that comes through any channel.
So, I want to begin by explaining what this book means by Your Soul's Compass, since that's pretty much going to be the focus all month. The authors explain the Soul's Compass this way. The Soul's Compass is magnetically attracted to the heart's loving intelligence, and that is connected to the source of all being. When we're in touch with that source, that soul's compass becomes a moral, economic, and social compass, an overall guide to an intelligent, illuminated life. So you can see exactly why it's so important that we follow that guidance, that we follow our compass. In this book, they liken the soul's compass to that of the migratory birds, who know how to find their way across thousands of miles of unknown terrain. They always seem to get where they're going, don't they? Well, their guidance system is hardwired for that precision. In the same way, ours is hardwired for God. So, to bridge that gap between our head and our heart, which is what most of us are trying to do, we need to be open to our spiritual guidance, open to that divine that's directing from within, so that we can have a greater, more expansive experience without. So, to get in touch with and live from our authentic selves, it's so important for us to look at specific, workable ways to be in sync with that particular process. Our nation's religious history has been filled with advice for us to obey God, to listen to the voice of God. However, we may not have heard near as much advice on how to do that, how to hear that voice, how to participate in our own transformation, or how to go with the divine flow as opposed to against it. And that reminds me of a story about this mother who was preparing pancakes one morning for her 2 little boys. And Kyle was 5 and Kevin was 3. And they started arguing and fighting about who got the first pancake. So Mom thought, teachable moment, right? I can teach these boys a moral lesson. So she said to the boys, if Jesus were here, he would say, let my brother have the first pancake. I can wait. So Kyle the older boy, said to his little brother, "Hey, Kevin, you be Jesus." If you have boys, you get it, right? Thank you. Thank you very much. One of the most important ways to see if we're headed in the right direction, if our compass is pointing due north, we're following that divine guidance, is through the act of discernment. Discernment requires us to use our own judgment. It's a technique of connecting us to our inner wisdom that we all have, so we can decide for ourselves what, if any, information or suggestions given to us by our inner self or by someone else feels right, if it's right for us. It's the action of going within, going with our gut instincts to become an advocate for our own best interests, for our personal well-being. In this book, I love what they do because they interview several different traditions and religions and ask them the same questions. What the Quakers said about discernment is this, that it's a process of perfection, of a gradual unfolding. So, it's not like that. How many of us want it like that? Right? It's gradual. It's a process. And we can practice discernment by using those 6 wisdoms that they talk about in this particular book. And the wisdoms are the ones that Sue shared. The common sense, our head wisdom, which is our logic, our heart wisdom, which is our intuition, our body wisdom, which is that felt sense, that reflective wisdom, that which we can take, so we can take a look at how we've been conducting our lives over whatever period of time, and that wisdom of transcending the opposites. When we can merge that discernment and the wisdom, we can become very adept at following our inner guidance. And guess what happens? Our entire life opens up. Practicing discernment leads to our choices being more about conscious living, more about we as opposed to I. That's what I love about this wall. It talks about we, right? Not I. The Quakers speak a whole lot in this book about the pause. And basically all that is pausing and taking that reflective moment before any major decisions are being made. Taking time to really apply those wisdoms to check in with ourselves instead of making those decisions quickly and then not feeling good about the outcome in the long run, right? Having those regrets. So common sense is the first wisdom that has been mentioned in this book. And that simply means paying attention to the obvious. And that's not always as easy as it sounds, is it? They call it common sense, and a lot of times do we say, maybe it's not so common? Have you ever said that? Because you question what you do or what other people might say or do. Webster defines common sense like this: sound and prudent judgment based on a simple perception of the situations or facts. Most of us know it when we see it, that common sense. Probably more so, most of us have no problem pointing it out when it's missing. We might say something like, "Oh my gosh, what the heck was I thinking?" Or, "Oh my gosh, what the heck were they thinking?" So then we move on to that second wisdom, which is our head wisdom, our logic, our evaluator. And that's where we want to avoid making those snap decisions, taking that pause to reflect on the possible outcomes of our decision making. It's a good time to make that list of pros and cons, to take it into prayer, asking for guidance, and then letting it go and allowing life to do its work, surrendering. And then we have the opportunity, we can revisit that same particular thing maybe later or even the next day. We want to release that sense of urgency because everything takes time to germinate. So after common sense and logic have been addressed, we use the wisdom of our heart for confirmation. Confirmation of a decision by asking ourselves some questions. Excuse me. Is my response to this situation loving? Is it kind? Is it patient? Is it generous? Is this action soulfully or personally motivated? That's a real big question, isn't it? And here's the thing, even if the answer, even if that choice is ego-based, if the decision ends up more selfless than it was in the beginning, it's still a response to guidance. Because getting less selfish than before is a really important, critical part of our spiritual growth. We need to allow our heart to help educate our mind. Bring those two things together. When we're altruistic, the act changes both the external world and our own internal world. So then we move on to the fourth wisdom, which is the body. I love what Gordon uses to describe this particular wisdom. He asks this question: if you ate your decision, what would it taste like? What would it feel like in your body? Would it feel like hot peppers or hot chocolate? Would it feel like sour milk or some fine cheese? In other words, what choices energize you and nourish you, and which ones deplete you? I really love that. Makes you stop and think, doesn't it? Do you really want to have lunch with that particular friend when you routinely feel drained and empty every time you spend time together? How does that feel in your body? Do you feel free or do you feel constricted? When we make our decisions based purely on ego, we find that it might taste sweet for a moment, and then there's that possibility of that bitter aftertaste. And so we ask our body. The fifth wisdom they talk about is self-reflection. And it's a commitment to retrospection, examining our actions, our reactions, our behaviors from the entire day. And when we review those circumstances and honestly explore our conscious, we then take that time to reflect and review. And what we're doing is we're inviting in that spiritual guidance. We're inviting in that right action as we do that. Because we're calling for growth. We're calling for understanding. We're genuinely interested at that point in becoming a more beneficial presence in this world. How can I do better? How can I be more? The final wisdom is transcending the opposites. And they, in this book, use the example of the inventor Gutenberg. As he was divided between his preoccupation with his work, which was figuring out how to mass produce books, and his love and obsession, may we say, with wine. Now, how on earth would those two things work together, would you think? Well, one day he found himself staring at a wine press and he was rather intoxicated. And that became his aha moment and his inspiration for the printing press, which you know revolutionized Western civilization. William Blake wrote this: without contraries, there is no progression. I know that's true for you. I know that. We don't like it when we go through that stuff. However, that is where our growth comes from. And as uncomfortable as it may be to have our habits and our prejudices challenged and disrupted, it's those disruptions and those contradictions that have the potential to wake us to greater possibilities. These 6 wisdoms are the basics for practicing discernment. They are aspects of both awareness and attention. And when we're willing to use them, allow them to work together, we come to that place of recognizing, accepting, and utilizing that God-given guidance that we have. In the beginning of Your Soul's Compass, they share a story which illustrates someone who is very much in touch with and connected to his divine guidance, his compass. In 2005, Time magazine ran an article on heroes who made a difference in several places: New Orleans, Biloxi, across the world in Pakistan, and in Indonesia. And if you remember, this was after there were several man-made and natural disasters. Well, one of the people they highlighted was a Pakistani man, and he rescued thousands of people that were injured by a massive earthquake in October 2005, and it killed more than 70,000 people. Well, 15 years prior to that, this man was a cab driver in Washington, D.C. And he had a dream that he thought gave him the winning lottery numbers. So he played those numbers religiously every single week until he won $55.2 million in 2001. After that happened, he recalled that his dying mother told him he was going to be somebody that was very important one day. And with that, he decided to return home because he felt like he could really do a lot of good for the local people. That was the best, most important thing that he could think of at the time. So he went home, ran for and won the mayoral race, and 3 days later, that massive quake struck. The hospital was destroyed. People were wandering the streets with nowhere to go and no help. He used his lottery money to buy medicine and supplies, to round up healthcare professionals. He established a field hospital. He set up tents for displaced families, and he continued to help villagers rebuild their homes, fulfilling what he truly believed to be his divine destiny. He trusted that guidance. He knew what he was to do. He felt it. It was logical. His mom talked to him about it. All of those things just lined up and were in place for him. And that's what I'm asking you to do too, is trust that compass that's within you. If something is drawing you toward it, move forward. Go there. Trust that mentor that lies inside of you. It is God, Spirit, Source. Honor, follow what has been given to you. And check in with your wisdoms before you make any of those really important big decisions in your life. And here's the truth. You will not know what can be accomplished through you until you undertake whatever it is that's staring you right in the face. Maybe it will be your own printing press. Maybe it will be helping after a natural disaster. Maybe it will be finding a cure for cancer. Or maybe it will be to create harmony in a relationship or in a family situation. Or maybe it would be giving children an opportunity to be loved and to be cared for. You see, it doesn't matter what it is. It matters that you follow that. Whatever it is you're called to do, I invite you to do it. Be open, be willing. It just may be that you are called to do something to change the world. I'm going to close this morning with a poem called Intuition. And it's written by Masami. I can't say the last name. So there you have it. Intuition always exists in you. It was there from the beginning. It is not man-made, nor does it need to be. It is within you. It is around you. It is you. There is no need to search for it. You simply need to become aware of it. Become aware that you are a spirit from God. You are no longer asleep. You are no longer dreaming. You have come to see the truth. The truth is that you are a child of God, shining brightly. So I invite you, listen to your heart. Allow your soul's compass to guide you to that life that you know is yours. And instead of compromising your dreams to fit into what the rest of the world thinks, lift the world around you to match your highest vision, and you will make your own world a more beautiful and fulfilling place. Thank you for being here while I shared this truth as I understand it.